Um, Hello, everybody. I think we've got a few people here. We're just going to give it a few minutes to allow some more people to join. The session is being recorded so that anybody who can't attend today's session or maybe needs to dip out for a little bit as well, you'll have access to the recording after this session. Welcome again to colleagues just joining us. We're going to give it another minute or so just to allow people to enter and join. And just to say the session is being recorded. So if you need to dip out at any point, or if you've got colleagues that aren't able to attend, they'll be able to access the full session afterwards. But we've got another couple of minutes before we're ready to start. Okay, I think I'm going to start the session now. Let me just share my slides. Thanks everyone for joining us. And for those of you who haven't met before, my name's Holly. I'm part of the library team and I'm joined by Tash today from the Reading List support team. And this is an hour-long session to look at Reading List, to look at some of the changes that are happening this year with EM25, and trying to just make this as easy and as accessible for all of you. So whether you've created a million reading lists before, or whether this is your very first reading list that you're creating, hopefully we'll give you the tools that you need to get started. The first half of this session will be with me, so about 15 minutes or so. I'm going to talk through some of the changes that are happening with the reading list system. We're going to look at how reading lists work and hopefully make you feel a bit more confident with how the acquisitions process works and how reading lists are used to make sure that your modules are properly resourced. And we're going to look at some key kind of technical points around ebooks and e-textbooks to make sure we're all kind of on the same page around those resources. And then I'm handing over to Tash, who's going to take us through a live demonstration of how to set up your reading list, how to structure your reading list, so add things like sections, notes for students, how to set the importance for certain items, and then also how to reuse content from previous reading lists. So rather than having to start again from scratch, if you've got a similar reading list from a previous module, how to go in, select a few key items, or even select the entire list and then transfer that over into a new list. And then we'll come back to me where I'll show you how you can find new resources for your reading lists, and then we'll have time for questions as well at the end. As I'm talking, or as Tash is talking, if you have any questions, please do pop those into the chat and we'll monitor that as we go along. And then if we want to go into more in-depth questions, we can look at those together at the end as well. So looking at kind of how the reading list system works at Kent, I just wanted to talk a little bit about why we use it. We use a reading list system called Tallis, and there's three reasons as to why we use the Tallis reading list system. The first reason really is for the student experience. That's probably the most important reason why we use reading lists. It's to set expectations for students. They feel prepared and organised and can get ahead of their studies and they know what to expect. And I think this slide, although this shows feedback not necessarily from Kent students, I think this does a really good job of showing the strength of feeling that students have around their reading list. Students really do care about where they can access reading lists and how soon they can access reading lists and what is actually on those lists. So I think that's one of the reasons why we focus so much on the reading list system. The other reason why we use our reading list system is to hopefully support you in including inclusive and accessible resources for your module. So using the Tallis reading list system allows you to incorporate lots of different formats, to think about the accessibility, to ensure that materials are available for your students in different formats, and also to help you think about capturing a wide range of experiences and perspectives in your reading list as well. Particularly important for those of you that might be engaging with the diversity mark module. The reading list is a big part of that diversity mark process. So we'll go through that in just a second. From a librarian's point of view, and the reason why we're here today is to really talk about our perspective with the reading list, which is an acquisitions tool. So quite simply, if it isn't on the list, it's not in the library. Having items, book chapters, ebooks, titles, DVDs, digital resources on the reading list, the only way of making sure that the library has access to those resources and to make sure that you and your students have access to those resources. So engaging with the reading list is really your only way of making sure that you can request those resources for your modules. What happens when you create a reading list and then publish that reading list is it kickstarts that entire acquisitions process. Once you click publish, we receive a notification that your reading list is ready, and then Tash and her brilliant reading list team go through that reading list, check to make sure we have everything in, maybe liaise with vendors, we have a look at ebook licensing, we have a look at budgets, all that kind of behind the scenes work then starts to happen to make sure that we have enough resources in for you and your students. And also it means that your students can save time and money. We know that students do like to buy their own copies of key resources, and there's definitely benefit to that as well. But having resources in the library allows more access for students that maybe aren't able to afford their own copies of those key resources. So what's the big change this year is that our reading lists are not rolling over. So for those of you that have maybe not gone through this process previously, what usually happens in the summertime is that last year's reading lists will roll over. We will then send out comms to module conveners and we'll just ask you to check through those reading lists to make sure you're happy with what's on there. If there's any updates you want to make, any new additions that you want to replace older editions with, if you want to increase the number of print copies or have a look at ebook licenses. And then once you're happy with that, we make that available for students. This year, because of EM25 and all the changes to module codes and module hierarchies, that hasn't been possible for us to roll everything over. So unfortunately, what needs to happen this year is every module that will start from October this year will now need a new reading list created on the system. And that really gives us one of three options, depending on your module or modules. If you're convening more than one, there will be three options for you. And there's a flow chart on the screen, which looks very complicated, but it just really accounts for every single type of possibility. But really, it's these three options here. If you have a brand new module, which will use brand new resources, never before used or seen in the library shelves, then of course you would need to create a brand new reading list, and that would be a standard part of convening your module. If you are convening a module this autumn, or perhaps in the spring or summer, which is loosely based on a previous existing module, then one of your options might be to go back to a previous existing reading list, select a few select titles that you would like to use on your new reading list, download those and reuse them. So that way you're not having to start again from scratch and create a brand new reading list. The third option is if your new module or your new reading list is actually pretty much exactly the same as previous reading list, you have the option of going into that old existing reading list, downloading that list as it is, and then simply uploading that into a brand new reading list on the system. It'll save you a bit of time rather than having to add each individual title one by one. There is still a little bit of work for you to do then in terms of the structure of that list. You will need to organise that into sections again, add any new notes for students, and set the importance for those resources as well. But essentially, you're able to reuse existing content. And just to say, those three options there that we've just looked at, those three options, we're going to look at that in more detail when I hand over to Tash, and she's going to take us through those three options together. The other major change for this year is we're bringing forward our deadline for reading lists, which I realise seeing this on the screen might feel a little bit impossible and might be striking fear in the hearts of everybody in this meeting. May the 5th is our new deadline for reading lists this year. And just to clarify what I mean by that is we're prioritising those brand new modules which have brand new content. So things like ebooks, books, journals, DVDs, resources that we currently do not have in the library or do not have enough copies of in the library. We would prioritise those reading lists to be sent to us by May the 5th to make sure that we can process those in time for the autumn term. It doesn't mean that reading lists that are sent to us throughout the summer won't also be processed. Of course, we'll process all reading lists that we get sent, but the idea is to stagger this work as much as possible. Potentially in the autumn term, we're going to have around 1,500 brand new reading lists, all published and needing our attention. And Tash and her amazing reading list team are brilliant at processing reading lists, but they're not superheroes and they're not able to process 1,500 reading lists all at the same time and make sure that all those resources are purchased for exactly when we need them during those first few weeks of term. So the idea is to stagger that work and make it a little bit more achievable. From a library perspective, it will also make sure that we're using our funds in a really smart way. So we're coming to the end of the financial year right now. We have some unspent funds within the library budget. We're looking to see what unspent funds we have and how we can use this to front load purchases for modules starting in the 25-26 academic year. Next year, when we get our 25-26 budget, there will likely be more cost-saving targets for us to hit. We're already trying to achieve cost-saving targets, but it's likely there will be more. We don't yet know what that budget will look like. So in order to make sure that we can purchase as many core titles as possible, we're asking module conveners who are at that point where they're ready to publish and they know what's on their reading list to publish that as early as possible to give us the best possible chance of using those funds. So that's why we've set May the 5th as a deadline for those modules and for those conveners that are able to get those resources to us. It also allows us to have a little bit more time to do a review of the university's subscription to e-textbooks. And I just want to spend the next couple of slides talking specifically about e-textbooks. I recognise that not every school uses e-textbooks in the same way. So this will apply to some of you, it won't apply to all of you. But I think it is really important to talk about e-textbooks and how they work in relation to your reading list and your modules. So ebooks and e-textbooks are essentially two different types of resources. E-textbooks are a form of ebook. You won't always know if something on your reading list is an e-textbook. And in fact, if you have a book that has the word textbook in the title, that doesn't necessarily mean it is an e-textbook. Quite simply, an e-textbook is a type of ebook, and the definition is based on its licensing model and the subscription model that happens behind the scenes. But just to compare the two, if the library is buying a copy of an ebook, that means that we have indefinite access to that ebook. Whereas if we purchase an e-textbook, that access is temporary. It means that we have to subscribe to that e-textbook every year, and every year the price of that e-textbook will increase. When we purchase an ebook, we're purchasing a shared number of licenses. So we buy an ebook usually with a multi-user license, which can be shared across the university for all students to use during the duration of that book's life. Same way with a print book, we'll buy X amount of print books, put them on the shelf, and hundreds, if not thousands, of students can borrow that book as long as that book is in existence. With e-textbooks, the licensing is very different. We are required as an institution instead to purchase a license per student on that specific module, and those licenses cannot be shared across modules or across schools. The other main difference between ebooks and e-textbooks is the price and the costing. With ebooks, there is a clear upfront cost. So when we purchase an ebook, we roughly know how much that ebook is going to cost. We're able to budget for that. We're able to assess how much of the budget is left to fund copies of that ebook. With an e-textbook, the price is a little bit of a grey area. The price will depend on the number of students quoted for that specific module. And then the actual cost of the e-textbook will depend on the number of pages accessed in the academic year. So we're in a very difficult position sometimes when we try and promote the use of e-textbooks. Quite often that means the cost of that particular e-textbook increases. And we are reviewing the use of e-textbooks over the summer period because at the moment, the number of e-textbooks we have is a little bit unsustainable with the budgets that we have. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. We're not getting rid of e-textbooks. We absolutely understand that lots of modules make really good use of e-textbooks and are cost-effective and are in demand by the students. But what we are doing is on a case-by-case basis is we're looking at usage, we're looking at relevance, we're looking to see if it's on reading lists, and then having conversations with individual module conveners to see if it's still appropriate for us to purchase e-textbooks for those modules and to see if there's other alternative options as well. So just to say, if you're interested in knowing more about the textbook criteria, this has been published on the library SharePoint pages here. And just to kind of reiterate what we're prioritising. So e-textbooks will be prioritised for anything that is identified as a core title on a reading list. E-textbooks aren't really appropriate for things like recommended reading or background reading, for example. We're also aiming towards the idea of one e-textbook per module. And again, just want to clarify that one e-textbook per module doesn't mean that you cannot have other ebooks on your module reading list as well. As I mentioned, e-textbooks and ebooks are two slightly different versions of a product. And we also recognise that that isn't going to work for all modules. And so again, this will be a case-by-case basis. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it will happen in conversation with your subject librarian. We'll of course prioritise distance learning and online modules where we can't supplement the reading list with print materials, and we will always suggest alternative standard ebooks or CLA scans or even alternative titles with conveners. So as you can imagine, this kind of review of e-textbooks does take some time. It will be worth it in the long run in terms of being able to identify the best resources for modules, but this is another reason why we're asking for reading this to be published a month earlier than usual, just to make sure we've got enough time to go through that work. I'm going to just go through some quick tips about reading lists and how we can make sure we're using them more effectively. And Tash is going to demonstrate these in much more detail. But the main thing just to cover first of all is the idea of structuring your reading lists. And again, for any module convener that's going through the diversity mark process or previously has gone through the diversity mark process, you'll have heard this concept come up a few times. This is a way of allowing your students to clearly access resources on your reading list. Students want their reading list to be well structured and easy to navigate. And in the live demonstration that Tash will go through with you, she will show you how to do that. It's very, very easy, how to create sections and how to match these to your module contents on Moodle, or how to identify key themes and topics. So depending on your module, you might want to match this exactly to your Moodle page where you've got week 1, week 2, week 3, or for specific modules, you might want to arrange this more in thematic blocks or even in relation to specific assignments. The other thing we can help you with and show you today is how to assign level of importance when you're creating your reading list. So when you're adding titles to your reading list or whether you're importing existing lists, what you'll need to do is make sure that you're happy with the level of importance that's been set on your reading list. And there's 3 options to choose from. There's core, recommended and background. Core is a must-read title. This is something that students would be expected to refer to, if not every week, but multiple times throughout that module. If it's a recommended title, this is more of a should-read resource. So students are advised to read to supplement their understanding, but it wouldn't be something that would be referred to week in and week out. And background resources are optional. These are could read items. These are things that students might read to find more contextual information about the module's content. So it's useful for the student perspective to see what titles are expected to treat as core and what titles are expected to read as background. But from the acquisition side of things, this really impacts the number of titles and the number of items that we will order for the library. So if you mark something as core on your reading list, this means that we will try to purchase multiple copies, including ebook licenses and print copies for the shelf. We will purchase this at a ratio based on the number of students in that particular cohort, and we will prioritise digital wherever possible. And it's also important to say as well that if something is marked as a core resource on your reading list, then the accessible information team will only focus on those core readings and provide accessible copies for students with ILPs. For recommended titles, we'll purchase a smaller number, and for background items, we'll purchase one copy where possible. So making sure that the level of importance on the titles on your reading list is really important because it dictates how many copies will be available for you and your students come the autumn term. Another aspect of the Tallies reading list, which Tash will show you, is how to create notes and how to annotate items in your reading list. Again, really useful if you're going through that diversity mark process as well, but also just really good for getting students to engage with module content. So you can add annotations to help improve student focus, particularly for those students that might be unaccustomed to reading long texts. You can set targets of reading chapter 2, chapter 3, or even set topics and questions to help them prepare in time for seminars and discussions and assignments. So if you're interested in using those features of the reading list system, Tash will show you how to do that in her demonstration. The last piece of advice is to limit the length of the list. Feedback from students has shown us that long lists are inaccessible and do really overwhelm students. And the library will also struggle to provide sufficient copies if we get really huge lists of resources on there. So consider using existing resources that are already available in the library and a variety of formats. We do also have some options if it isn't possible to limit the length of your list, because we know there's different cultures across different schools. One of the options we've seen work really well with reading list is linking out on the reading list using a link feature out to a Padlet or a different online resource where you might want to discuss different titles and resources that aren't necessarily going to be part of that main reading list. So there are a few different options if you're interested in using those as well. And lastly, as well, I forgot to mention, is looking at creating inclusive and diverse reading lists. If there are any module conveners today that are interested in applying for the diversity mark process, this might be particularly interesting. We've got some resources on the diversity mark toolkit page which highlights some of the existing ebook collections, journal subscriptions and databases. They can help you critically reflect on the choice of reading resources on your reading lists. They allow you to help consider a range of perspectives and find material related to your subject. So if that's something you're interested in, then please do note down the URL and have a look at these resources, or you can reach out to your subject librarian and start to have those conversations. I'm now going to pause my slides and I'm going to hand over to Tash, who's going to share her screen and take us through a live demonstration.
Before I start the demonstration, I just wanted to answer a question to Diana in the chat. So it's just around the how to know whether something is an ebook or an e-textbook. So with the e-textbooks, if you've already got one, you'll be aware because your librarian would have got in touch with you at the time of setting it up and talked about the cost of it, and would have shared a direct link with you. So all of our ebooks that we own do also have online links, but they're links that they link out to the library catalogue, whereas the textbooks only link directly to that textbook. So nobody else can access them other than people who are either in Moodle or Talis. Does that make enough sense?
Yeah, just to clarify, the reason for that is when I mentioned the differences between ebooks and e-textbooks, ebooks can be shared by everybody, so they can be found in the library catalogue. They don't have to be on a reading list. Everybody can access them. With e-textbooks, we pay per number of students in that cohort, and we pay per number of pages accessed. So that link that you are sent by your subject librarian is for you and your module alone. It can't be shared with anybody else. If you're creating a brand new reading list, you won't have had a link sent to you yet because that hasn't been part of your process. If you're asking at the point of creating a reading list, how do you know if a title that you're adding to your list is an ebook or an e-textbook? The answer is you don't, and we don't either. Once you've published your reading list, we get sent a copy of a reading list to go through. And it's at that point when we start to look at books for us to purchase, we will find out very quickly if a book is an e-textbook purely from just speaking with our vendors and the people that we buy our books from. They will tell us if that's not available as a normal ebook, if it's only available as an e-textbook. And then at that point, your subject librarian will get in touch with you to raise the different options that you have. So if an e-textbook is the only copy available, we'll have a conversation with you and see if that's suitable for your module. We might suggest alternative titles. We might look at existing ebooks on the course. So just to say, if you haven't had that link sent to you yet, it might be because you haven't added those titles to your reading list yet. Okay, I'll take over the chat if there's any questions while Tash is presenting, and take it away, Tash.
Find the right window for me to share. That's better. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, we can see that.
So I'm just going to show you the three things that Holly's gone through, really: how to create a new list and the associated actions within it, how to get resources from an existing list, some resources, and how to get a full list imported over to a new one. So this is the home screen for Talis. Anybody, if you've never used Talis before, the screen will look like this, but there'll be a little prompt here to create an account. It only takes a minute to create an account. You just put in your name and job title. If you have used Talis before, you have an account, there'll be a prompt here to log in. It's always worth just keeping an eye. If you're using Talis and it's not behaving the way you expect, or you can't find your reading list, it's always best to check that you're logged in. It does sometimes log you out. To create a new list from scratch, you use this menu at the top and go to My List. What you have in My List is any list that you've already made. So I've got loads, but to create a new list, there's a button here, Create New List. And then you put the list details in. So that's a description if you wanted to say anything about the module. And the internal note is if you wanted to say something to library staff that you didn't want the students to see about the reading list. So, for example, you could put there if it was distance learning, or if it's taught across two campuses, anything that you think that we need to know. Where it says select hierarchy, it's Talis uses the term hierarchy, but it's essentially the module code. So when you go to select hierarchy, all of the module codes for 2025 have been preloaded into Talis. So your module code should come up as soon as you start typing it. I'm going to put in one that we've got for demonstration lists. So where that's dropped down for me, as soon as you put in your module code, it should drop down with the name, and then you save it. And the other thing is just to be careful when you're adding the academic year, because there is the option of all the previous years. So just make sure you click on the right year and save it. And then what you get here is, this is a reading list, but it's completely empty. There's nothing in it. And you can see here it says that it's draft. all the time that you're working on the list, it will be a draft list. And when you are ready to share it and you hit this publish button, then this will change and it will say your list is, I think it says like available to see or something, but it just tells you the status of your list. What I'm going to do is everyone does it slightly differently. There's no like set way that you have to do it, but I normally start by adding sections, and then when I've got all my sections in place, I add the items that I want in there. So for the first section, just use the button. I'm going to do these in weeks, but you don't have to. You can do it by subject. However you do your Moodle module is normally best to mirror. So I've got section week 1. If I want to add another section, I can use these prompts here. If you're using these prompts to add something, just be aware that the blue line shows you whereabouts it's going to sit. So that just stops you from putting like a section within a section by mistake or putting anything in the wrong place. Another section. One more. So once I'm happy with the list and I've got all the sections I want, then I'm going to start adding resources. So there's different ways you can add a resource. For adding books, it's really straightforward. You can click add resource and it takes you to like a search function. If you're adding anything that's not a book, anything that's got a URL attached, so a journal article or a website, anything like that, there's another way to do that with what we call a bookmark tool. So I'll show you how to add the books and then we'll go through the bookmark tool. So again, you just click add resource. This searches, I think it's Nielsen book data that we use. So you should be able to find the books you're looking for, whether or not we've got them in the library, because it's not the library catalogue specifically that it's searching. So you put in the name, you can put authors there as well. You can find, so this is all the options for the book that I've looked for. If you click into the details of the book, it will tell you what your options are. So the different editions, the ISBNs, the format. So here it will say, yeah, paperback, softback, ebook. And this column just shows if we've got it in the library. So if you are wanting a book and we've got it in the library, I would click add to list next to the copy that we've already got. But if we haven't got it in the library, you can still add it to the list. And it just means that when we review, we'll look to buy it. So again, you can add a resource. Another resource there would go into week 1, or I can add one in week 2. So similar thing, click into the title, you can see the different formats. This particular edition, we don't have any of them in the library, but again, it's not a problem. You just add it to the list. So that's fairly straightforward for adding books. If you want to add something that's not a book, there's something that we call a bookmark tool, bookmark extension, and it's really easy to install because Talis has got this prompt here. If you haven't got it, it will have this little prompt. Click on install. It doesn't matter which browser you use because it is suitable for several different browsers. Sorry, apologies, I'm not. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so it's just got the different. If you scroll down, it tells you how to add it for the different browsers, but I'm going to do Chrome. And then a button here, add to Chrome extension. You have to put in the institution, but this is just the first time when you're installing it. You won't need to do it again. Just to say to be careful with the University of Kent. Where previously we used to have separate tenancies, it's still, Medway one's still listed. So just make sure you choose University of Kent and save it. And then these are my extensions. I've got Talis here, so I'm just going to pin it. And there it's there. So if I want to add anything now that's not in the book catalogue, I can just use this browser button. Move this out of the way. So when you use the bookmark extension to add something, you don't have to have your Talis page open to do that. You can be on whatever it is that you want to add. You can be on that. So if you were on a web page and you thought, I'll add a link to this to the reading list, you can do it. Or if there's a book that you can't find in that book list and you found it on Amazon, you can go to the Amazon page and use the extension. So I'm going to demonstrate with a website. You need to click right into the thing that you're adding so that Talis can pick up the metadata. You click on the bookmark extension. And then it gives you the detail of what it is that you're linking to. If you click here, create, this will fall into your bookmarks. It won't appear on the list, it will just appear in the bookmarks. So I normally create and add to list at the same time. And then it asks you where you want to add it. So this is the list that I'm using today, but I could add it onto any of the lists that are mine. I'm going to say at the top, week 3. At this point, you can put in the note for student. So yeah, if you've got a suggestion for them to watch it, or like I could say, this is recommended. And when I go to just have to refresh the reading list, hopefully it should show. Okay, so there we can see week 3, and it automatically has a view online button that you can follow through. It's the same if you wanted to add a journal article. The way to do that would be to go to the journal article through library search, and then use that bookmark tool to add it. And that way Talis can recognise the metadata that's in the record, the journal record. And so when it's got the online button, students can access it. The only thing you can't really put into Talis can't cope with a PDF, because the PDF is just like a picture. It doesn't really have any data attached to it. So apart from using a PDF, I would say it's pretty much easy to add anything else with the bookmark tool. What I'm going to show you now is how to, if you've got a list that you're using at the moment that you like, and you want to say take some resources from it and add it to this list. So this is the list that I'm working on, but I know that I want a couple of items from the history test list. So what I can do, I can go through here and I can see this is one that I want to use in the new list. So it's the 3 dots at the side. Somewhere. Add to my bookmarks. And then you can do that for as many things as you want. And then when I now go to my bookmarks, those are the things that I've just added. And I can either from here add them to add to list, or I can go to the list. This is the way I tend to do it, just because I can see it all in one place. Go to the list and then add resource, and the things that are in my bookmarks will already be here, so I don't need to search and put the title in. You can see that book's there, and add it to the list. If you want to move things around on the list, like if I've added that in the wrong place, if it's just moving up or down by one spot, I can move the up and down button. But if I wanted to put it a bit further, I can also use cut and paste. So I can put this down the bottom there. So that's just the easy way to move things around. Talis will always prompt you if you've forgotten to set the importance, whether it's core, recommended or background. And if you want to add any notes at this point, student notes or library notes, again, it's the 3 dots. The note for the students can be seen by everybody. The notes for library, it's just our staff that can see it and not students. And the last thing I'm going to show you is how to import like a whole list. If I've got a list and I just want to copy the whole thing over into a new list with a different name or different module code. So I'll go back to my list and I'm going to use this Ellen's demo list because it's a bit smaller, I think, and hopefully it might work a bit quicker. So this is the list. I want this whole list to use all the resources for something else. So go to the View and Export button and say Export RIS file. And now if I go to my bookmarks, I can pull in that RIS file that I've just downloaded. So okay. So under the, sorry, I was looking in the wrong place. I was expecting it to be under Actions. Under Add, I can import citations, and that I'm going to choose the file. And because I've just imported it as an RIS file, it's going to be in my downloads. So I'll go to my downloads, choose the file, and then it appears here. Right again. And at this point, I can do 2 things. If I click import, then all of the items on that list will go into my bookmarks in the same way as it did when I added individual ones. So everything there will be in my bookmarks and I can just upload them as I need them. But if I know that I want everything on the whole list, I can click this, add imported resources to a new list. And I can call this to import. I know it's done because it gives me a message. I can close it. That list that I've just created will appear in my lists, but it can sometimes take a few minutes. Sometimes it can take up to about 5 minutes. Yeah, it's not through yet. So this is the one I've just created that I demoed with you. And in a few minutes, the one that I've just copied, that's called EM25 Demo 2, that will appear. Let's refresh it. Here we go. It's here now. So although it has copied all of the items from the other list, it doesn't do it particularly neatly, because what it does is it doesn't do it necessarily in the same order. So it's all the items that were on there. It has brought across the importance, and I think it should bring across the student notes as well. But what it doesn't do is have any sections. So you would have to, if this is going to be your starting point, you'll need to add in your sections. And the other thing you'll notice is that it says view online for all of the resources. And that's because the way we've imported it, because we've imported it as a file, it thinks it's an online resource. But don't worry too much about that, because when my team picks up the list and we go through and review it, we'll change these buttons. Anything that is showing as being online that isn't, we'll just change it at that point. And let's have a look. If I wanted to add a section here, save it. I've saved it there and the section's empty, but I can then cut and paste the items into it that I want. If I want this one as well, cut and paste. So that's how to add sections in when you've got a whole list, and you can move things up and down, chop and change them. I'm gonna stop sharing now, just to see if anyone has got any questions.
Thanks, Tash. There hasn't been anything related to that in the chat. I've been answering some questions about e-textbooks, but other than that, I think we're all good.
Oh, hi, Diana. Did you have a question? Oh, you're
Oh,
muted.
okay. Hi everyone. Yes, I just wanted to tell you from our side as conveners, when we create all this structure of the Moodle page, um, it's very hard for us to know from the beginning, what to do week 2 or 3, because sometimes we can change. So I think, from my point of view, I would avoid doing, by week the reading list. Because you can have some remaining parts, from the chapter that you done in previous lecture to continue with that in the next lecture. So that one is quite difficult to capture in your reading list if you do it week by week. But as well, I want to check with you, because everyone has access, all the students have access to this ebook or e-textbook, and everyone, I don't know if the student is allowed to download a PDF version of that particular chapter that I'm telling to them in the first slide. For this lecture, you need to read chapter, let's say 13 from our textbook. Now, do they go or not to do that, to download it and actually reading it, or have it saved in their computers? Because I can do that. So I have PDF saved on my computer, and then I upload it on the Moodle page for everyone to access it. Is that correct? Am I allowed to do that?
Thanks, Diana. A couple of things there. So you're absolutely right. Not everybody structures their reading list week by week. It's different cultures across different schools. Some people really like a very strict, regimented week by week reading. We found that other schools prefer just to have maybe grouped by topics. Maybe that's more helpful. So you're absolutely right. It's not a one size fits all approach. In relation to the ebook chapters that you just mentioned, again, it will depend slightly, and I don't want to confuse the matter more by bringing e-textbooks back into the conversation. It will depend slightly on if the core reading is an e-textbook, in which case there is an individual copy for each student. If it's an ebook, like just a standard ebook, then yes, it will be a PDF chapter or a HTML chapter that the student is accessing through the reading list. And the reason why we don't advise module conveners just to simply create their own PDFs and put them onto the Moodle reading list, onto their Moodle page, sorry, is that we haven't been audited by the CLA licensing team in a very long time. We are due to be audited any day now. And in order to make sure we're complying with copyright licensing, it is important to either request PDFs through our CLA scan request service, which means that we can provide really high quality, accessible scans that can be embedded into your Moodle page for you. Or if it's an ebook that we have in the library, we would rather you link to that ebook and that e-chapter rather than creating your own PDFs and putting that onto the Moodle page. You just make sure we're abiding by copyright, and also we're getting value for money in what we're paying for. So when we're paying for these ebooks, we want the students to be able to go directly into the ebook and read them there as well. You are right slightly in the sense that not students won't always download a copy of that chapter. Sometimes they'll be reading that chapter directly on the screen, and depending on the publisher, there'll usually be two options. They either have the option to read on the screen or to download that particular chapter to their device as they want to. If there's a particular marked up version of a PDF, so if you've made annotated notes for a chapter, then that might be worth looking at some of those notes and trying to feed that into the reading list system, or using that note field if possible. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I realised I've...
Oh, yes, perfectly. Yes. So does it mean that if someone goes on my free modules that I convene and they see that, let's say, out of 11 weeks, for 7 of them, I have already uploaded the PDF file, that it's a problem? Do you understand that? If we have the auditing and go into my modules. It's just
Yeah,
I spoon-fed the students to encourage reading. They do not do, only if you give them in, just click button.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, isn't it? Because I think a lot of conveners have that same problem. How do you get students to realistically engage with the reading material? And we have it on the reading list purely from an acquisitions point of view to help us. Some students prefer to access the reading list to access their book chapters. There is also an option on Moodle to create a link directly into Moodle, which goes out to that chapter. It would be a duplication because you've already got that on the reading list, but you can also add and embed a link into the Moodle page. But in order to abide by copyright licensing, it would have to link out to that ebook as opposed to a PDF that you've added yourself.
So let's hope, the exams are next. I think would not be a good idea for me and deleted them now, because in case students maybe rely on that way of accessing instead of downloading them by themselves. Because of laziness, I think that's the only thing. It's much easier for them, and it's there, and it's so visually, it's so give them good structure. We have the title of the topic, the lecture, and then immediately as an entry in Moodle page on the same week, we have the PDF file, which I thought it's very lucrative and, really good for the students. But if you say that we have some issues, maybe for the future, we need to, I don't know, find something else, because I thought, we can help students that way. And I don't know if other conveners have done that. But
Yeah,
heavily rely on that.
we know that it's different across every school. I think some schools really rely heavily on that, and some schools really rely heavily on the reading list. So again, I want to just be very clear about this. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We know that every module has its own needs and its own kind of different ways of working. And I know that there is a way for you to embed sections of the reading list within. So for those, I know this doesn't completely apply to what you're saying, but for those reading lists where you do have that week by week, so week 1, week 2, week 3, there is an ability to embed week 1 of your reading list within the module, the Moodle module. Tash, that's still correct for the new Moodle 25, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. You do that via Moodle rather than via the reading list. When you're in Moodle, you add an activity, and one of the activities you can choose is a reading list section.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I didn't know about that. All right, thank you very much.
No problem. Are there any more questions, actually? Tash, have you, so I was monitoring the chat. Tash, have you had a chance to demonstrate the bookmarks tool, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
But if
perfect.
there are any questions around that bookmark tool, I'm happy to go over it again.
Just give you permissions, bear with me a sec. Okay, Ashley, you should be able to unmic yourself now. Ashley, you should be able to unmute yourself. Just checking you can do that. Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Ah, that's it. I'm now. Tash, I need to import a whole list, but I didn't have. I've gone to the list because I thought I'd do it quick. Do it now while you was talking, so that I wouldn't forget. But I don't have the import citations on my screen.
Oh. I think
I was able to download, view and export in the old list.
Yeah.
But I say I don't have not the add button that takes me to import citations. That's what I haven't got.
Just having a quick look at mine. Is then the add button isn't there at all?
Is add resource, but it's for when you put a book in. It's not actually
Oh, are you looking
to do citations?
Are you looking in the my bookmarks section? Right. If you're in my list or my bookmarks, it's slightly different. If you click in my bookmark.
No, I don't think so.
What I'll do, if you're able to give me your email, I'll just check that you've got the right permissions that you should have. that you've got the right academic permissions, just in
Possible.
case there's the reason why it's not
Because I'm
there.
not the convener, it might be that I haven't got access to change it.
You should. Well, because it's in your bookmarks rather than a specific list, it shouldn't matter what the list is. You know, the fact that you've got a profile, that you've got an account in Talis, you should be able to import things to your bookmarks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if I'll, thank you. I'll have a quick look.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions while we're here? Either in the chat or I can unmute people as well. And just to say, while people might be thinking of questions, this isn't the only training that we're offering for this term as well. So Tash and her amazing reading list team are able to offer more bespoke training as well. So if you and some colleagues would like maybe an in-person drop-in session where you just bring your laptops along and say, this is what I've done so far, I've hit a wall, I'm not quite sure what to do, happy to arrange that as well. And we've got all of the videos, we've got brand new video guides, brand new step-by-step guidance on our SharePoint site of what to do depending on where you're at with your reading list. I'm going to put those links in the chat there. So we've got a link to the reading list help team, a link to our new reading list SharePoint pages. And for those of you that are interested in knowing the nitty-gritty details of e-textbooks, we've got our new e-textbook criteria there as well if you want to have a look. And apologies if I've kind of muddied the waters a little bit by talking too much about e-textbooks. I know it doesn't apply to everybody and it can be quite confusing to get your head around. But if you are interested and want to have a bit more of a chat, then do just drop us a line as well.
Sorry, I'm just going to say, I was just typing a reply to you, Ashley, and it'd be quicker for me to just say it.
Okay.
I've just gone into Talis and I've updated your permissions, and you should get an email with a link in it. But the email will be shown as being from Talis Aspire, so it might go into your junk mail.
No, I've got it, and I've accepted it. Yeah.
Hopefully now your screen should look the same as mine.
Okay, I'll have a look.
If you've still got any issues, we can look again separately. And if there's a problem with it, I can always get in touch with Talis and they can sort it out.
Lovely, thanks. So I'm just scribbling a note of your name so that if I get any trouble, I know who to contact.
Yeah, you can contact me directly, but also it might be easier to remember reading list help.
Reading list. Yeah, I've got that as well.
That comes into our team, comes directly to us. But,
lovely. Thanks ever so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Holly.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for attending as well, and everybody watching this recording online. For those of you watching online, you won't have seen the links in the chat, but they're part of the slides. And I'm also going to send the slides around to everybody who attended here today as well. So if you want to go back to those links of how to find things, you can do. But just to say, on the mic for the recording, the email is readinglisthelp@kent.ac.uk. The URL to our SharePoint pages is tinyurl.com/readinglisthehelp. And our e-textbook criteria is tinyurl.com/e-textbook criteria. Thank you, everybody, and good luck with your reading list, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks, everyone.